Hello, hello, hello. This is Tooth Be Told. This is Dr. Walter Aka.
This is Leroy Horton.
And Kyle Dumpert.
So we didn't want to basically keep, we when we get together, we talk a lot. I think our listeners understand this about us. We talk a lot and we get very philosophical, and one topic could last a whole hour, which it did. So if you
Yes.
listen to the part one of this episode when we talk about fluoride, we can keep going. And so we said let's just give them a little break, and then we'll have part two, which we can talk about medical billing and how it's actually the new law will affect dentists. So Dr. Dumper, please give us the new law and then tell us what your gripe is.
So they have been fighting with for medical debt to not be included on your credit report or affect your credit score. And that law has passed where any medical debt can no longer affect your credit report or be on your credit report or affect your credit score. Now, there's reports that the credit reporting agencies are going to sue over this to try to block it because that affects their business model. And again, money's involved. So there's always lawsuits with these kinds of things. But dental offices are included as medical debt. So, as of the current law, if a patient does not pay for services rendered by the office and you try to send them to a credit reporting agency, the credit reporting agency can't really do anything other than send them letters and threats that are empty because they can't attach it to your credit report or credit score.
So if you send them to collection, it really doesn't mean anything anymore.
Correct.
And that was like our biggest ace in the hole when it came to getting people to pay for what we've done for them.
So, as I'm sitting here, as we're talking about this,
Hmm.
I'm a little hesitant to even put this episode out there to make this knowledge more widely known if there are patients listening to this episode. Um,
Hopefully, we're attracting the good kinds of people to this
this
podcast
is
and not
this
the
is the
scumbags.
yeah. Let's say this is more of a caution and a practice management podcast for dentists that are listening to us.
There it
To
is.
might be time to change your billing practices.
So,
Uh,
so what do we need to do then? Like where can we go from here if there's no consequences for that would be like me going to going to get a house and then saying, you know what, I'm not paying for this house, but I'm going to live in this house for free, and the banks will never be able to really do anything to get their house back, right?
yeah.
Because then we can all just squat at places without any consequences. So how is this fair for anybody?
Well, let's put it in perspective, right?
Please.
Because and Kyle can let me know how he runs his office. But when patients came to me, we always had a breakdown of insurance. This is the allowable amount. Insurance pays 50%, your co-pays 50%. It's due at the time of service. So we never really ran a high debt, except for the 1 year we kind of tried a rolling debt model to try and adapt to the economy. This was years ago. Um, where people patients could make payments on it, on
Hmm.
their portion,
Hmm.
right? Um, if someone did make a payment, you send them to collections. Collections usually will send them a notification, two or three notifications, a warning letter, and then report them to the credit agency, right? But it was never really outstanding amounts of debt for an office like mine. But I am seeing a lot of offices where they'll do full arch dentures, teeth in a day, only $99 a month, right? So I could see where that type of model as a business, you might have patients that are sitting on 40, $50,000 balances, right? So for your bread and butter office, does this really make a difference? Because are we really running huge debt amounts with our patients, or are we chasing, because I think even before anything less than $500 wouldn't get reported to a credit agency anyway, right? So are you holding and maybe we don't want to put out that Kyle's allowing people to make $5 payments on $5,000 treatments, but do you find yourself holding a lot of debt, Kyle, in your model?
I don't, because when I purchased my practice, the dentist I bought from was somebody that said, "Oh, you don't need to stop at the front desk. You can go out. We'll just send you a bill," because he wanted to look like that good guy that I'm not charging. You just go. I trust you. I trust you. When I came in, I revamped that whole system and went to what Roy was talking about is printing out the treatment plan. This is what our estimates are. I spent, you know, a lot of nights at the office finding fee schedules from insurance companies, inputting all of those into the computer, trying to get them accurate. And in a perfect system, all of those treatment plans are accurate, and the vast majority of the time they are within a couple of dollars, pretty accurate. The times they aren't accurate is at the beginning of the year when insurance plans change, and if the staff aren't verifying insurances. If a patient comes in that has had the same insurance for a couple of years, staff gets lazy, they don't check or verify that the insurance is still active. You charge them what you think the copay is. Insurance comes back, this patient doesn't have any active insurance with us, then they have a balance. So there have to be the right billing practices set up. They have to be checked with the insurances. The insurance companies have to make it easy to provide that information on what the coverages are. UPMC is a big one in my area, and they are one of the worst offenders of this, that they don't have a website where you can go in and easily find specific codes if they are covered or not and at what percent. So the insurance company's answer to that is, well, just send us a pre-auth. And same day dentistry is a big part of my business model for emergencies. And if I have to wait 2 weeks to send in a pre-auth to get it back, and on the pre-auth it says, this is not a guarantee of payment, still, you have no idea if it's covered or not. So those are the cases where things slip through and patients don't take personal accountability for their insurance. And they'll say, well, you were supposed to check that insurance. That's your problem. And no, it's your insurance. It's your problem. This is your responsibility. And in those cases, while few and far between, that's where patients can start to take advantage of a dental office. And now there are no repercussions to get that patient to pay.
Can I just say, I'm sorry, Laura, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was going to say, I think one of the deep things that Kyle said is that even in a pre-auth, you'll get the pre-auth back that says yes, but then in tiny letters it says, however, this is not a guarantee of payment. Like, that's how much of a scam the insurance racket is. But patients, what they see is, well, my insurance pre-authorized it.
That's it.
What do you mean and then you're just always the bad guy. So I can 100% identify with that particular scenario.
Right. Even if you do everything you're supposed to, you can still get
Absolutely.
screwed over as an office.
But you can still take them to small claims court, even with this law. And in most states, like in Washington, it's anything under 5,000. So, I mean, it might just take you filing some paperwork and spending, 1 or 2 hours at the courthouse. But there is some action you can take as a dental office against your patients.
Well, here's something else too, guys, for us to consider and think about. So we know that corporate dentistry is growing. And one thing that a lot of people know, and Kyle, you worked in corporate, so you also can attest to this too, is a lot of corporate dentists, they do same day treatment, like readily. Like they want patients to get something done that day. Like that's what they push for. And Leroy, you mentioned how, you do a pre-authorization, you wait for the insurance to get you back the numbers before you actually do work, right? Because that lowers your chance of getting screwed over by insurance, stuff not being covered and so forth. But the funny thing is with corporate dentistry, it seems like everything's just go, go, go. So some dentists will actually do the work send it to insurance, and insurance like, no, we're not covering that because of, tooth claws or whatever it may be. And guess who ends up suffering for that? The dentist that works in that insurance works in that corporate industry, because the corporation's like, well, we made most of our money, so you didn't get paid, right? So really, if you think about it, with the fact that with the fact that corporate dentistry is growing, the people that are going to end up suffering are the dentists that work for them, right?
Well,
Because if you think about it, their goal is to get patients to say yes and do the work. And then here's another thing too that I want you guys to kind of discuss is a lot of the corporate dentistry, they have their own payment system.
right.
And the way they actually do this is they say, well, we need you to put down 2 forms of IDs, and we also need you to put down some kind of credit card or whatever it may be. Because that's where we withdraw monthly withdrawals from, is from credit cards. Now,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying this, but I'm saying this, right? So imagine I'm a crook. Imagine I'm a crook, guys, okay? And I give you 2 credit cards. Cool. Here's my 2 credit cards. What is stopping me from turning around and canceling those 2 credit cards after I've gotten the work done?
Nothing.
Nothing. So why is this something that makes sense to them?
So there, another way that offices are getting paid, um, especially with these big treatment plans where, it's not the dentist selling the treatment plan. There's a treatment coordinator that's going in, talking, getting them to say yes, getting them to sign on the dotted line, but they're using third-party financing companies, Care Credit, Cherry, some of these other ones.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how that is going to change, because if it's not like you can repossess a car, but you can't repossess dental work.
Right.
So are these companies,
except for dentures,
even then, I don't know if you can.
I will take my denture back, please.
The repo man shows up.
That is a brilliant. I love how you said that though, because I didn't even think about that. There's a whole industry based off of medical and dental debt.
Yeah.
Third party.
Yeah.
That now they don't. I mean, I don't know if they have the resources to take everyone to small claims court, but and some of them, a lot of them, it's a lot more than $5,000 that they can get approved via Care Credit.
Right.
That is going to be interesting to see how they adapt.
Yeah. I just think that they're going to kick it back to the dental offices. I always find it that these third parties will find a way to say, well, you're going to be held responsible too.
That's part of the selling feature is, we'll pay you up front. It's our responsibility to get the patients. And that's why we're taking 10, 15, 20%, because we're taking that risk. But to take that risk now, and there seems to have been a race to the bottom, as, went from a minimum credit score of 650 down to 600 to, we'll approve anybody. And now there can be a race to the bottom when you're financing cars, but there can't be a race to a bottom if you're not allowed to attach it to somebody's credit score and say this person isn't trustworthy to loan to.
You know what I feel that they might do? You said that dentists will probably get the brunt of this. They'll probably increase that fee, right? Whether it's 6 months, 12 months, whichever one you choose, that whole scale will go up. And they'll probably banking that enough people will do the right thing that they can, adjust those fees so that whatever losses they do take on the few crooks, they still come out in the end. I feel like even, the whole insurance market is based on that, right? It's playing the, the risk versus the benefits. So they probably will stay in business, but who's the middle person that's going to get taxed?
No.
And that's going to be the dental office.
Well,
so we might see that 13% at 6 months on Care Credit all of a sudden go up to 20% because it's a higher risk transaction now.
Why couldn't they do what insurance is doing for houses in California, Florida, Louisiana, North Carolina, which is, well, you know what? If we see that this is going up, where patients aren't paying at this amount in your office, maybe we just don't offer Care Credit to your office. Right? You're the bad actor. Your office is a bad actor. So therefore, we will not offer Care Credit to your office, but we'll offer Care Credit to your neighbor's office, because guess what? Their patients aren't defaulting at a higher level.
It's possible.
That's another way of punishing the dentist that has nothing to do with patients, paying or not.
Yeah,
Right.
it's possible. I'd like to touch on what my opinion of the spirit of this law is.
Please.
So medical debt, say you're in an accident, you're taken to a hospital. Most people are under the assumption that, I gave them my insurance. Everybody in that hospital is participating. UPMC hospital is in my area. I have UPMC insurance. I go to a UPMC hospital. That should all be in network stuff. A lot of people don't realize that all of the doctors working in that hospital don't necessarily have to be in network with UPMC or any other insurance company that all the other doctors are. And everything is happening so fast. You're seeing so many people. A radiologist is reading your stuff. You have a hospitalist, you see the endocrinologist, you see all these different specialists that you don't really have a choice of. And by the time you get out of the hospital from whatever emergency you had, you've now racked up $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 worth of debt. And you had no idea that half of those doctors were out of network. And that's why your copays are higher. In that sense, I agree with you're not knowingly signing up for debt because you didn't know what the bottom line was when you were getting the treatment. There was a No Surprise Act, a federal law that went into effect January 1st, 2022, that basically helped to protect patients against surprise medical billing for out-of-network providers. And that's when there was a push for dental offices to really, even though they should have been doing it before, providing a treatment plan saying this is what the total cost is, this is what we write off, this is what we anticipate your insurance coverage will be, this is what we anticipate your portion will be. However, if your insurance does not pay for it, you're responsible for this total amount right here. And in my opinion, with this new law that passed, if you can provide documentation that, hey, I have a signed treatment plan that they agreed to, you should still be able to send that patient to collections if they're not paying their bill. So while I understand the spirit of the law to help protect people, there is a big issue with including dental offices in that, or not having stipulations of, I'm going to prove that I did everything on my end to cover or to inform the person. They signed it, they agreed to it, and now I'm out the money because they stopped paying. They didn't hold up their end of the contract, and there's no consequences for it.
Right.
What can dentists do to protect themselves from this? Let's just say that we know this is going to go into law and it's going to go into action. So what can dentists do to protect themselves? We've told patients how to be crooks. We've taught them that part. So now we need to teach dentists how to combat this. So what are some of the suggestions that we will recommend for dentists?
Well, I tell you this. I mean, every collection agency I ever worked with, you still needed all that stuff. You had to have a signed treatment plan. You had to have a ledger showing that you actually provided the services that you say that they are responsible for. Otherwise, they wouldn't even take your claim, right? You can't just call them and say, hey, Walt over there owes me $50. Get that for me, right?
That's right.
But that, as I've been doing a lot of travel dentistry the last couple years, it's alarming how many just like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it later, or we'll bill your insurance and see what they cover. There's still a lot of loosey-goosey transactional experiences that are given to patients that, to me, I just feel like it provides room for a patient that, even if it's not out of bad character, let's say they fully intended, but by the time everything came around and we saw what was written off and what wasn't, now they're in a worse economic spot, and they're just looking at you like, well, damn, doc, you didn't tell me it's gonna be that much. And so I think the more you take it upon yourself, and you do have to pay staff to do it. right? You have to have a dedicated person that's verifying insurance, developing treatment plans, printing out cost estimates and out-of-pocket estimates. That's just part of the game, but it does protect you in the long run. And I think it also makes you the good guy in the long run because everybody hates. And here's a personal story. I had a colonoscopy last month.
Mm.
I didn't really know exactly how much it was going to cost. They gave me rough percentages. And I get this bill after I get like two little bills for $50 here, $60 there. Then I get a bill for like $1,200, right? And so I go and look at my explanation of benefits because in my head I'm like, all right, this is a mistake. This is a little high. My entire treatment was $30,000.
Jeez.
So that made my $1,000 seem rather small. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and pay this before they change their mind and come back for more. But everybody hates surprise bills. And I think that's why a lot of dentists have the moniker of, oh, you just want to get our money, because a lot of us for years in our industry have just been sending surprise bills to people as opposed to having that straightforward, this is what it is. Do you want to go forward? Sign here. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's actually very brilliant, Leroy. Honestly, all jokes aside, we joke a lot, but what you just said, I think people need to really hear that, which is a lot of dentists don't like to come across like the bad guy. They always want to be the good guy, like Kyle said with the previous owner of his practice. Oh, let me be the good guy. Oh, don't worry about money. We all trust each other and stuff. But it's a business. A business is a business. Walmart, McDonald's, any of those, they're not, gonna sit there and say, well, you know what, just take that TV, and we'll send you the bill later. We trust you. They don't do that. They say before you leave, you pay for the TV. If you don't pay for it, that's called theft.
Yeah.
So why
and show
don't
me the
we
receipt before you leave, because we don't trust. We don't
Oh,
even trust you.
no, well, yeah.
Show me the receipt before you leave.
And we want to see that receipt. Costco does that. I want to check off that receipt, But that's what I'm saying. It's like we as dentists play victim, but we don't think about the whole business aspect. And I think that's something that you guys brought up, which is key, which is we cannot act like we are victims when we do this to ourselves.
And I think we were set up for failure. I recently went to the dermatologist, just a regular yearly check.
Mm-hmm.
Before I leave, any doctor's office, hey, what do I owe for today? Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. Because it's medical insurance, there's different layers that it has to go through, especially a UPM, something the size of UPMC in my area. And I'm curious to see how their billing changes and how their practices change, because that was 2 weeks ago. I still haven't gotten a bill where I know I'm going to get one. And same with you, Leroy. What's your incentive to pay that $1,200? There's really no consequence to you at this point if you don't, other than, affecting your own personal thoughts about yourself and not taking care of your responsibilities. So I think patients going to all these medical offices are conditioned to, oh, I'll get a bill in the mail. I'll get a bill in the mail. And when I first implemented that policy at my office, we're going to pay day of, and before you get any final treatment, you have to pay the balance. I think it took a lot of training of the patients for them to accept that as the new operating model. I lost several patients because of it, but that's okay. I don't want those patients there that are going to argue with making payments. I think also, if you start treatment on somebody, if you don't have a mill in your office where you're milling a crown out, I don't think you can hold that final crown from somebody if they don't want to pay. You started treatment, you are ethically required to finish treatment, even if they don't want to pay you. And it seems to be stacked against the dentist because we're held to a higher, or not dentists and doctors, medical doctors. I think we're held to a higher standard, where I think that standard should be applied across the board to, if you're going to receive services and you don't want to pay for it, there has to be some kind of consequence for that.
I agree.
Just a warning to everybody listening. Change your billing practices.
Say that again.
As a warning to anybody, any dentist listening, you might want to look at your billing practices. And, a lot of people don't realize this with the collection agency I was using. They had 3 tiers. The first tier is sending out 3 letters, 3 phone calls saying, hey, you owe a debt. Second tier was same thing, 3 phone calls, 3 letters, more sternly worded, saying, if you don't pay this, you're going to be sent to collections. First level cost me $10 per account. Second level cost me an additional $15. That third level, once they go to collections, collection company takes 50% of whatever they collect. So if I send somebody for $1,000, I'm only getting 500 of that back. The collection agency is getting 500 of that. So it's not like we're, as I think Leroy said, we're not sending a lot of patients. It's more of a warning. I look at that. If you run somebody's credit report or, Care Credit or Cherry or whoever you're using for financing, if they're not going to approve them because their credit score is 450, 500, then why would I sign a patient up for in-office financing? Why would I keep a credit card on record and say, look, I'll ding it, once a month for the next 3 months until it's taken care of? It's moving forward, because all this medical debt was removed from credit reports. You have no idea how trustworthy somebody is, so that credit score isn't as important anymore. It's not as accurate, and that's a problem, I think.
And I'll tell you this, actually, I brought up a good memory. I had about 3 or 4 patients who we had sent to collections, and they went to get a house, and it showed up on their credit report, and they showed up and they cut a check because they, push came to shove. They said, all right, well, now I got to do it. So the system of holding that leverage, against a delinquent patient does work.
Right.
Right. And it's not, again, like you said, we're always dealing in catastrophic amounts of debt. Maybe an outfit like Clear Choice, one of the ones where they do, all on X, both arches, 70, 80 grand, maybe it's going to affect them more. But it is something that I think, because it shifts also the dynamic of the third party financiers. The tax is always going to be on that middle person, which is us, right? We're the middle person between the patient,
right,
the financing end of it. So yeah, I'm curious to see if that law either change the industry or even just go away. Are they gonna, reverse it?
Yeah. Gentlemen, we're gonna end it here, but I don't know. I think we want. I think we can all agree that we want it, just like school debt, just like a lot of different debt, auto debt, personal debt. Using credit cards to pay for debt is bad, right? But debt could also be beneficial if you want to buy a house, if you want to get a car, right? But we have to be responsible for it. And I think people need to be held responsible when you make the decision to take on debt. You also have to make the decision to pay it back. And so we can't always feel bad for people, especially when businesses are involved, right? Because I provided you that service and I expect to get paid for my service, right? We can't say, well, we're going to protect patients from medical debt, but then what about the banks that are basically having people pay for houses that they can't afford? We're not going to do anything about that. That doesn't make any sense to me. Right. So just like we talked about with the fluoride, we have to look at the whole system and figure out what the problem is in the system, not just let's pick something that everybody feels passionate about, which are doctors get paid too much or doctors are the evil villains in this equation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sounds to me like we need to start a business. You know how in the last couple of years security businesses started? So everyone has a security firm, right? Providing security at
That's
Walgreens, at the gas station, and so forth. We need a debt not a debt collection because it has bad inferences, a debt suggestion. Pay your debt suggestion business. Get cousin Vinny show up at the houses of people and be like, I'm not saying you have to.
See,
I'd be appreciated paid it
that's
by
that Greek.
tomorrow.
That's that Greek coming out. That's that Greek mafia coming out. All right. Well, hey, let's end it there. We appreciate everybody for listening as always, and hopefully we're able to kind of give some knowledge here today.
Before we end, I'd like to do a shameless plug.
Oh yeah.
March 7th to the 9th, there is a nice event in the beautiful city of Blue Bell, Pennsylvania, with PAGD, and our very own Dr. Leroy Horton is going to be talking to us about strategies for success in extraction and ridge preservation. So I am very much looking forward to this. I've been pushing for this for well over a year and a half, trying to get him out here. So pagd.org events. If you want to come see him in promo, it's
Hey,
really
appreciate
good
the
course.
plug, man. I got some good stuff lined up. I got some great support from Nobel, providing models, grafting materials, instruments. So it's going to be a rock star session for us. I'm looking forward to it.
Give us that website
and to hang
again.
out with you in person. You know,
Kyle,
Yeah,
give us that website again.
Yeah, it's pagd.org, Pennsylvania Academy of General Dentistry.
PAGD.org. What's the days?
March 7th through March 9th of this year, 2025.
Perfect. Well, hopefully people go out there and listen to Leroy. I honestly can say that he gives really excellent lectures. I'll personally back that up. I did beat him in a competition, but that's another story for another day.
wah, wah, wah. I need a rematch on that. I need a rematch.
But everybody have fun. Good luck, and honestly, this was a great conversation, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Truth Be Told. The opinions on this episode are just that, our opinions. Please consult your dental professional before taking any action with your dental health. If you have any questions about anything you heard on this episode, please contact us at Real Dentist with an S. That's REAL Dentist with an S at gmail.com. We would be very happy to return any message that we receive because we love the communication that we have with our listeners.